Good morning from Dallas, Texas. We're here with Johan Botha. I'm saying that correct and almost Dutch now, right, Johan?
That's 100%
Perfect,
correct.
perfect pronunciation, because Johan speaks Afrikaans. He is joining us from Cape Town, correct, in South
Correct,
Africa.
correct.
And we're here to talk about the Association of Language Companies in Africa. Johan is a big part of that, and he's about to launch into the first conference in Cape Town a little bit later this summer. Johan, go ahead and introduce yourself real quick to the audience.
Yeah, as you rightly say, Johan Botha, you've got that pronunciation just right. So the with Folio Online, we are a language service provider, probably one of the oldest. We're going on 38 years now in Africa. And we are a full service language service provider, translations and interpreting and video and subtitling and voice and all of those things. And we specialize in African languages. That has
Yeah,
been our specialty since the start. So uh, exciting continent to be on.
yeah. What inspired you to launch the ALCA, the Association of Language Companies in Africa, and what inspired you to put on a first major event together on the African
Yeah.
continent?
The we generally talk about it as just ALCA. It's just easier on the ear.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, yeah. So the it's I just have to say that it's a co-founded association, and there are two other major players, Adi Namaran Kurubali and Christian Yulong Fan, of they're both in Ghana, and I think without their support and so on, this wouldn't have happened. This association wouldn't have happened. We we sort of found that a Pan-African association was never there. It was lacking. Um, you have sort of the silos of associations, the West African one and the East Africa or country-specific ones. And then you read about what's happening on in certain conferences or things that they happen, and they talk about the same issues. And we thought, listen, why you have the European Association, you have the American Association, and the Southern American one, but there's no Africa, and we need to address issues that East Africa is having that might have been solved by West Africa already, but they don't know about one another. It's very interesting. You have in Africa, you have this spirit of togetherness, uh, and we're sort of the idea that Africans stand together. But it's strange in our industry, you don't have that, which is interesting. Everyone is sort of in their little niche market, and they don't speak to one another. Um, I mean, if someone says to you, name a language service provider in Ghana, I'm almost 100% sure someone here in South Africa would struggle to name someone. And I mean that's one of one of the main things is just to provide a uniting voice, a unifying voice.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Just in the last couple of years, I've been following and going to the Vamos Juntos conferences
Yeah, yeah.
in South America. There was one in Peru, and just at the beginning of this year, there was another one in Mexico City that I attended, and I can
Mm,
really see the evolution there. It's promoting a lot more
yeah.
symbiosis and conversation between the local companies there. Is that kind of the same goal that you have to find ways in which companies on the African continent can find similarities and work together?
Yeah, it's I I'm often struck by, as I mentioned, that there are issues that a language, because we specialize in African language, so we work with companies and individuals all over Africa. And there might be small issues different, but generally some of the bigger things, tools and connectivity and all of that, that's prevalent in most of Africa. And things that have been solved in a unique way in a country might advance if another country can learn of from those things. It can advance the industry in that country. So it seems as if everyone in their unique little market is reinventing the wheel over and over and over again for the African market instead of saying, listen, let's work together and build to use the analogy, build a huge wheel, a huge Ferrari or something of industry. And I think that's one of the main things, because specifically I see it because I've been going to conferences for many years all over the world. And I see in things like you mentioned Juntos, we got in contact with them when we started this thing and said, listen, give us some advice. And they were very open with their advice. And that is something that I want to see. If we're going to a gala or a lock world, people are talking. We're not, it's for the advancement of the industry.
Yeah.
It's not competition as such. I'm sometimes amazed at the amount of sharing, intricate sharing that you get at conferences at the so-called water cooler. People, obviously they are competing for business, but I mean, they see the idea of let's one words that I've spoken to over the year now. That ALCA started in 2 years ago. Last year we had a virtual conference. This is the first in person, but that chat among one another in between sessions, solving issues, making business deals. That I've been missing in African conferences, and that's what we want.
Yeah, it's perfectly said. One of the things that amazes me always in the localization industry is that there is such a willingness to help each other out, and that's what
Yeah,
makes us
yeah.
quite unique. I think rising waters lift all ships, so that's
Correct, correct.
it's a good way of doing business, in my opinion. You're having this inaugural event in Cape Town. What made you choose Cape Town?
I think the knee-jerk reaction is why not Cape Town? Obviously, Cape Town. Cape Town is to obviously to me, but it's the cultural mecca, I think, of Africa. You have the mountain, you have amazing food, you have just the region, you have wine, you have technology, you have everything, infrastructure that there is. So just the beauty of it, conference goers, obviously they come for the conference, but then they stay a day or two afterwards for some things. So that's the knee-jerk reaction. The more traditional localization reaction is that South Africa we have a long history of localization in this country. We have 12 official languages that we have here. So we used to speaking in between cultures, ethnicities, speaking with that unifying voice. in South Africa faced some issues in the past, but it's I think that unifying uh, feeling, that spirit is here. So I think for us, besides the great location of Cape Town being Cape Town, it's just seeing what is happening in a traditionally more structured way that we have. We have a very old language association, the South African Translator Institute, that's been going for many years. Uh, the one thing that people might not know, you mentioned that it is summer there. Something that people might want to know is that we're winter. That's why I've got the jacket and the jersey and the and the everything in. So the conference is in end of August when it's winter, and Cape Town
Bring a
has
jacket.
bring a jacket. Cape Town has a winter rainfall, a rainy winter. But I mean, I spoke to some people. I know they're having a heat wave in Europe at the moment. So perhaps getting away from that heat and coming to somewhere cozy might just be the thing.
Yeah, here in Texas, we have a heat wave 8 months of the year, so it's definitely hot here these days. What gaps or challenges in African language services or in the African language services markets are you trying to address with this conference, you think, or are you trying to address with some of the gaps?
I
I
think,
should ask.
yeah, I think the main part of us that the unfortunately the underlying issue that we have for many of the industry partners on the continent is the issues that we face with infrastructure and bandwidth, and you have things that are happening on the continent in terms of infrastructural problems that are preventing uh, the actual work being done by the industry. So some of the biggest challenges are that you have tools, translation tools that's not optimized for Africa. They are very expensive. Africa has a mobile first, and I don't think people get that always. This is a mobile first continent. So because of there's no infrastructure in terms of old copper telephone wires, you have satellite, but everyone has a phone in their pocket. So if you're doing your translations, they do it on tablets. They uh, connect with their phones to a laptop or somewhere because they don't have that bandwidth. So some of the obstacles and challenges we have is to say to clients, education. Say to clients, listen, you want to market your product in Africa, but you want to use tools that are optimized for Asia, and that won't work. I was yesterday, 2 days ago. I was actually surprised. I've been speaking about this for quite a while, but 2 days ago I was busy doing. I'm also a translator, so every now and again, just to keep myself sharp, I do some translation. And I was busy checking things on my phone just to proofread something that I translated. Um, and the actual tool opened with a screen that says, this tool is not optimized for mobile use. Log into your PC. And I was quite surprised. That is the first time. Normally the screen is cut off or something, you don't do it, but this is a whole screen that says, this tool is not optimized. And I thought, your tool will not work in Africa. This
Yeah.
is not it's completely they will just move on to something. I was actually um quite shocked in the sense that there's such a complete lack of awareness of what is going to work for Africa. So
Your tool is not localized for Africa, we should say.
precisely, that is exactly right. Uh, and it just shows you they want to do your language, your African language, but they want it to be done on a tool that's not optimized and usable for Africa, which just says to you, Africa is not yet in the sphere of being noticed, being say, listen, we want to be a player on, have a seat at the table to say we are a growing market, and if you want to localize and market in Africa, the best way is to do it is to come to Africans and get the advice here instead of going to another country and trying to sort things out. I often get questions from people that I say, listen, you've got to, or we do, Folio does quite a lot of consulting. We have companies that come to us and say, listen, I did some things in Africa. It didn't work, so I pulled out. And then when I listened to them, they didn't do their homework. They didn't see what are the languages. They didn't check the tools. They didn't check the things that's needed. And then their product failed. And then they said, "Oh well, that's Africa. It's not worth it. Let's just pull out and not get any of those things that's being done."
Yeah, but what better way than to get an idea of how to address the market than to come on site? How do you think Africa's linguistic diversity
Yeah.
can create both opportunity and
Mm.
complexity and localization? How do you figure ALCA can help your local providers and the indigenous language professional uh, people in Africa?
I think that one of the best ways that we can help, Stefan, I don't know if it's my connection. You are breaking up.
Yeah, keep
Um,
going. Should I repeat the question real
can you still
quick?
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. No, it's fine. I think the main thing that we are looking at is education. ALCA wants to educate people about what is happening in the rest of the continent. Uh, Whether it be these are the tools that you need to learn. This is AI. This is what can be done with AI now, the ubiquitous AI. These are some of the things that you should learn, providing advice, providing training, some of the training on tools and data and what to do and so on. And some of those are very expensive. So we're trying to create a local market, a local education for starting organizations on the continent. One of the things that we also aimed for, that we started this year, is to create a localization report for Africa, because generally you have your NIMSY report and you have
Yeah.
your Common Sense Advisory report and so on, and Africa is generally nowhere to be seen there, or it's like a little snippet that's there. So we thought, well, data is king. Without knowing what is going on, how to do it, you can't grow. So we decided, listen, we're not getting the information somewhere else, so perhaps let's just create a report for ourselves. And we've sent it out to quite a few of people, and we've had some amazing responses, and it's actually now being compiled and written. And I think hopefully we want to give that data to say to companies, this is what's happening on the rest of the continent. Let's
Yeah.
say voice is booming. These are the sectors that's booming. Perhaps you want to look at it in your place, in your country, because some of those large, for example, the NIMSY 100, obviously no African LSP will qualify for that. Not the Slater one, not anyone. It's the benchmark for entry is just too high. So I feel completely excluding the data that you can get from those respondents by saying, well, you under $2 million or what have you, so you're not even qualifying to partake
Yeah.
in the report. So a lot of the data and the progress and the unique solutions is just gone awry. So I'm looking forward to getting that report.
I want to slip in an AI question because that's much of my focal point these days. Is there a way that AI can help leapfrog some of the traditional infrastructure gaps in Africa? I've done a couple of pieces too about indigenous
Mm,
languages and maybe small language models being able to help with that. What about
yeah,
leapfrogging the traditional infrastructure gaps with AI? What do you think?
yeah. I think, yeah, no, I think that's and we leapfrogged Africans leapfrogged lots of traditional markets for the you. One of my favorite examples is people didn't have bank accounts because there's no infrastructure to build a
Mm,
bank, for example, or so on. But everyone has a cell phone number, mobile phone number. So why not build a banking system that can work with just the person's cell phone number?
yeah.
That's leapfrogging the legacy. And I think AI has a lot of potential to do that. You let's say you have a course, a learning course that you want to give to someone in a rural area that can teach them about coding or something.
Hmm.
Uh, have that course tailored to them. You don't have to build a school. You don't have to build that infrastructure. You can just get access to a tool or an education or some sort of thing on your mobile phone. So, and interesting, you mentioned the language models. Just this morning when I woke up, I saw the NVIDIA had a report. I'm not sure you might have seen it, that they said for a small language model is the uh, models are the future for agentic AI.
Yeah.
And we've been saying that for a while in Africa, and that's leapfrogging. We don't have the bandwidth, we don't have the data, we don't have the the big data centers that needs a lot of power and water and all of that. So let's build a small language model. You have a model for just medicine, and the model is just in Afrikaans, let's say my language. Uh, and then you use what you've learned for that model, you use in other models. So that hyper specialized small language models uh, is already being developed or are already being developed here. And that's sort of the idea, I think, of the conference as well, is international people can come to the conference and see what is happening here and say, well, perhaps I didn't think of having an in-house small language model trained on only my data for only my language for only my main client's industry, and have them take that to America or wherever they are and saying, well, I didn't think of that, but that's actually a great idea. Let's do it there. So the I think what's naturally happening on the continent, because we're facing a lot of adversity. Sometimes there are conflict on the continent. So obviously, uh, if a gun is pointed in your face, you're not really worrying about AI.
Yeah.
But to get ahead, you need unique solutions for the continent. And I think going forward, a lot of those unique solutions can shape the global industry uh, and say, look, this is what Africa is doing. We should have done this a long time ago.
Yeah.
Let's go and learn from them. Let's get to them and say, can you help us to that unique perspective that I always
Yeah.
say. I had at last year's virtual conference. I spoke about not artificial intelligence. I spoke about African intelligence, the
Mm.
AI, and I think that's something that a lot of people internationally can take advantage of.
Yeah. What's the biggest misconception global developers have about African language data?
I think, well, the single biggest misconception that we have is that Africa is, um, hopefully not anymore, that Africa is one country, but the biggest misconception is, I think that there there are huge data sets, and it's easy to access. You just ask for a Swahili million page. Someone contacted me the other day and said, "Listen, I want to train a model on I forget the language, and I need a million segments, TMX that has a million segments." And I said, "You won't get that. It's impossible to get." And the person was sort of surprised, but why? It's strange. And I said, well, it isn't like that. You're going to have to do something different. You're going to have to train that small language with 50,000 units that we can provide. Um, so so the misconception is that Africa, and I've said this before, is this dark unknown continent. I call it the blob of Africa that people say they don't understand the 50 plus countries. They don't understand the 2,000 languages that's there. And I think because they don't understand that, they'd rather not enter the market for fear of failure. Um, but this morning, interesting enough, this morning I spoke to someone about Africa's young population. It's the youngest population now on the continents that's entering the job market now. And with that job market becomes buying power. And I spoke to this person about gaming. You have lots of millions of people entering the job market. They have their first paycheck that they get. They're young people. They want to play games in their language. That's a huge opportunity for
Yeah.
people to do that. So there's opportunity in the sense of tapping into markets that might not have thought about. And obviously I know people want to make money is to be made here, but you shouldn't try and exploit it. You shouldn't try and do it your way. If you do it a way that works for us, then we'll welcome you with open arms.
Yeah. How do you think African language companies can become more of a stakeholder of AI and not just consumers?
I think the first thing is just getting to be part of that narrative, just to be on the global stage and say, this is where we are. At the moment, we just don't have a voice on the global stage. And that's one of the main things that ALCA is also aiming at. And I've also spoke with some of the other people organizations. When you have your organizational power hat, association hat on, you can achieve a lot more to get a seat at the table than having a single language service provider trying to speak to the big guns in Silicon Valley to say, listen, this is what we want, this is what we have, this is what will work for us, this is how we can contribute. So we're trying to be that louder voice for the industry in Africa. And I think if we succeed, and we which at the moment we are doing very well, and we can be that voice for the small little player sitting in a town in Ghana that says it's frustrated. I want to use the tools. I want to do this. This is what I need. I have ideas. I have unique ideas. I always say the next Bill Gates is sitting there somewhere in Africa, and he doesn't have access to a computer. But if he did, then you would get the next Microsoft, perhaps. So it's the first thing for me before we can do anything in terms of advancement of the industry overseas is to get first a seat at the table. That narrative, become part of the narrative, saying this is the industry and Africa is part of the industry. It's not adjacent. It's not something that is up and coming. Africa, as I said it on a podcast the other day. Africa has been up and coming for 20 years now, and I think people are sort of here sick and tired of being up and coming. We want to now lead the pack in terms of doing what works for us, and then once that works, setting the tone for the rest of the world.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe there'd be an opportunity in building specialized tools for low bandwidth communities
Yes,
and
yes,
mobile
yes.
phone first. So, do
Mm.
do African providers have the tools to compete now in the global enterprise localization space, you think, or what needs to change, and is there an opportunity to change?
I think the main thing is that the opportunity is there, but for us, there's a lot of work to be done. That small language model, you need a you can't have a huge data center. So let's work on getting something that you can do in your office, a small thing. People said something, a large language model can't be done with billions and billions of parameters. And then we had China coming in and say, listen, this is what we can do with much less. Lilapa AI, which is a leader on the continent for AI, they released last year their small language model that they've now even, I think they dropped it by 75% of the usage with the same result of the computing power with the same result. So the opportunities are there. It's just to get together with tech companies because traditionally, that's also interesting for me, is traditionally language service providers and tech companies here, AI companies here, are not in the same space. Generally, when I'm at conferences, you don't see any tech providers. You don't see any machine translation specialists that is part of the language service sector here. So a company like us going to an AI provider and saying, listen, let's work together to create that space to grow and create the AI agents. I'm not sure at the moment AI agents is they are the hype word of the day, but people aren't really aware what they can do, how they should be applied. And I think that's the same here for Africa's the uncertainty of AI is, I think, a lot less here than overseas because we're used to adversity. We're used
Yeah,
to dealing with things that's difficult, and we don't have a choice. We have to get ahead with what we've got. But a lot of work is needed, and I think that's where ALCA can come in, introduce people, make that connection between industries, and that's some of the AI um, service providers and things. They are going to be at the conference
yeah,
and going to talk and say, this is what we can do. How can we help you? Or we need this help. Uh, so that's exciting for
yeah.
me.
I was gonna ask you one last a last parting question
Mm.
before we wrap it up, so to speak. What can big tech companies or maybe the localization industry do to support African languages on their platform? What are the some concrete steps you think that could improve the dissemination of African languages?
I think the first thing is to just get the insight on what is needed. Sometimes you they say to us, large tech companies come to us and say, listen, I want to market my product in Africa. I need two or three languages that I want to put my product in. And I say, well, that's not going to work. Just in Africa, in South Africa, we have 12 official languages. It's first finding the data of what is going to work. And that's the first step. Service providers overseas will need to be open to getting insight first and then bombarding everyone with the solution. Um, but I'm also cognizant of the fact that there isn't money uh, to localize something in 2,000 languages.
Yeah,
Um, so I know that's not possible, but it might be good to market it in Swahili, for example. Then you cover most of East Africa
yeah,
instead of because something that people are also not aware of is that English is sometimes this not the second, third, fourth, sometimes the fifth language for someone in that country.
yeah.
So just having it in Africa in English is a huge lost opportunity. And if you want to make an impact, uh, I always say that well-worn phrase of if you want to speak to someone, speak in their language. And if you want
Since
to make an
the
impact,
since the market seems to be so complex in Africa, there certainly seems to be an opportunity for localization firms to be involved in a lot more consulting with their customers than they would
yes,
do
yes,
in a traditional realm. Would you agree with that?
yes, we're seeing that at Folio more and more. People, those people that are open to do the groundwork. Uh, you build a tool for Africa means you build it from the start with African insight. Not build the tool overseas and think it'll work here. Uh, it's like translating a new piece of software with a screen that is optimized for English, and then you would have a sometimes for a language such as Zulu, for example, in South Africa, a lot of the terminology doesn't exist. So they have to describe a lot of the context, which, and I know length is a problem in many languages, but you might have something that's 4 times longer in an
Mm.
African language than in other languages because the terminology isn't there. So it's doing the legwork with service providers here, getting the insights with them before building the software.
Johan, thank you so very much for making a very compelling argument to come and join you at the ALCA conference in Cape Town. Certainly, if you're interested in going into the African markets and knowing more about the localization requirements for that. I thank you so very much for being with us, and I can't wait to talk to you again sometime soon. You're always a very interesting guest, and it was a real pleasure spending some time with you this morning.
Thank you very much for having me and happy 4th of July.
Thank you.
Thank you.